That's right.
1 minute if we can turn our mics on, please. Thank you. 1 minute if we can turn our mics on. Mics, thank you. Kevin, if you can turn your mic on, thank you.
Lyman, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Anderson? Here. Mrs. Dorn?
Here.
Mr. Kinsey?
Present.
Mr. Price? Here. Dr. Pryor?
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. If you're able, will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, Mr. Liming with the Treasurer's Report.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 14th meeting? So moved.
Mr. Price and then Mrs. Anderson. Any questions or corrections? Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price? Yes. And Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Can I get a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report for the month of November?
So moved. Second.
Dr. Pryor and then Mrs. Dorn.
Just a few things. First of all, as I say every meeting, the reports are on the website. If you want to see the details, we are looking good as the budget for revenue compares to what we've actually received. We've received a little more than we budgeted, and we spent a little less than we budgeted for expenditures. Salaries are at 40% of the budget, with 42% of the year elapsed. So there are a lot of details here. We at this point are receiving 23% of our revenue from the state only. And if you have any questions about anything else on the reports that were included with your agenda.
Any comments or questions? All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 amendments to permanent appropriations in the amount of $997,663.03?
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Dorn and then Mrs. Anderson.
These are all state and federal grants that were added after the school year began, and so we're now amending the appropriations to include those.
Not hearing anything, please call the roll.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Anything else, sir? Are you sure for your last Treasurer's Report? Made it. All right. Thank you very much. All right, so we'll now move into correspondence. Is there anything that maybe board members have received that you'd like to share, especially something that the rest of us might not have seen? All right, good deal. Number 4 on our agenda, favorite part, good news recognition. We have some really great folks to recognize
first, representatives from the Bellbrook Lions Club, if you'd like to join us. Yeah, hopefully everybody, whoever you want, come on up. See red shirts. This is in recognition of all of the hard work, the many hours, a large amount of resources that went into the design, the planning, moving the mulch, all the hard work for the brand new Eagle Land 2, the all-inclusive accessible playground right outside BCI. So I just have something to read here. This is a declaration of appreciation awarded to the Bellbrook Lions Club. The Bellbrook-Sugarcreek School District recognizes and appreciates the financial contribution, sacrifice, dedication, project management, and hard work of the Bellbrook Lions Club in the creation of the district's new accessible playground, Eagle Land 2, on the grounds of Bell Creek Intermediate. So on behalf of our community's children everywhere, thank you so much for everything that you've done. Please share a few words for everything you have to say.
Actually, it was probably one of the most fun projects the Lions Club has done in a long time. And the amount of support we got from the community was outstanding. And the number of hours of kids from 2 years old up to adults moving buckets of mulch, and it was really a joy and a pleasure to see the community come together like this. So we appreciate you, all the support we have in the school, and we look forward to the next project.
Just a great example of a private-partner relationship and just the amount of hours and time and just the dedication that the Lions Club has of just giving back to the community is just awesome, just outstanding. So we really appreciate that, and you're just a great example of how to give back to the community. So we really do say thank you.
Big thanks to the donors, too.
Arnie, that's a great lead into our next. Thank you.
Speaking of great support by our community, Diane Toby, please come up. Mrs. Toby was a very generous benefactor of this program. Really brought everything across the finish line. We just cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much for all that you've
And it's very exciting to get to drive by it at least once a day, and I'm glad to see all the kids can enjoy it, and for years to come. Thank you.
Appreciation for giving back to our
Sure.
community, and our kids will be on that playground for years to come.
Yes,
So we really
I hope
do
so.
appreciate it. Thank you so
Good.
much.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our treasurer, Mr. Kevin Lyman, if you please step out now. So Mr. Lyming has been in the game here for 22 years. 22 years, pretty impressive. He earned degrees in 1979 with business education, 1980 in accounting, serving the Cedar Cliff community 1980 to 1987, and Jamestown Greenview from 87 to 2002. We're very lucky that you've been here for 22 years. I just want to say, hopefully it's okay on behalf of the board, that it's been a true pleasure. You've always been incredibly patient. When I call you up and say, explain one of these 67 line items in a 5-year forecast, incredibly patient, but a very stable and calm presence through many years. Wish you the best of luck in whatever you're going to do next. I'm sure you'll be successful in it. And just from our community, thank you very much for your many years of service.
Appreciate that.
Kevin, so I just want to say thank you this is my 7th year here, and it's been a pleasure working with you. You've just been very collaborative of working with, and so it's just a good partnership, a good relationship. So I do really appreciate that if we have something that we need to do, whether it's positive or negative, financially, that you worked diligently on trying to figure it out and crunching those numbers, and just not only doing all that, but a funny guy, you know, and just real even keeled, but just a great sense of humor and just a great individual. And so not only a professional relationship, but a personal just thank you for your friendship and your professionalism. So really appreciate that. Good luck to you two again.
I have a few words I wanted to read here. I don't often get the floor, so I'm going to use it tonight. So somebody did some research to get all that stuff, but thank goodness you only got the good things in my life, not the bad. So this is my last board meeting after 22 years here, 44 overall. But being an accountant, I thought you might like to hear some statistics about my career that might be a little bit interesting. I've worked with 6 different superintendents over that time, 38 different board members, 16 of them while I was here at Bellbrook. And Angie might like to hear this. For 23 years, I processed the bi-weekly payroll by myself. Probably filled over 100 public records requests. That's a lot of fun. And then now we're getting into the really fun stuff. I filed paperwork with the Board of Elections for 17 levy votes over 44 years. Worked 34 union contract negotiations. And to top it all off, I've attended 720 school board meetings. So when you hear the question that I've heard a lot this last month, that is, why are you retiring now? I give them these statistics. Just quickly want to review what has happened to me over the time of my life. Wanted to be a teacher many years ago, so I got a degree in business education from Wright State, and I went back and got an accounting degree also. And at that point, I had to decide, do I want to be an accountant or a teacher? And by luck and a lot of circumstances I don't want to get into tonight, I had the opportunity at age 22 to become a school treasurer in Cedar Cliff Schools. And I got to be an accountant in a school district and use the education degree and the accounting degree. So I was happy with that. Last night we had a great retirement party. I want to thank everybody that might be here. I see some faces that attended last night. Were so nice to me. Got some nice gifts. But it's impossible to thank everyone that had an effect on my career, but I do want to point some quick people out. Current school board and Dr. Kozad, you guys are great to work with. You really care about the kids, and you are professionals. You handled in the last few years some real controversial issues, and that's difficult. I want to thank the school board that originally hired me. I'll see if I can keep from messing these names up from 22 years ago. Mike Froning is here tonight. Liz Betts is here tonight. Tim Anderson and John Harmeyer and Mary France were on that school board, if you know any of those names. Dr. Keith St. Pierre was the superintendent who recruited me to Bellbrook in 2002. I got to see him last night. I hadn't seen him in a long time either. I want to thank the people that I worked with in my treasurer's office over the 22 years. You might remember Kelly Brown, P.D. Weber, Sharon Cost, and then the current ladies in my office, Jessica Kane, Stephanie Eben, and Angie Bowden-Whistle. And they have worked with me for 6.5, 7, 7.5, we'll get it right, and 22 years respectively, 20 years respectively. Man, I really messed up. Not good with numbers. So Angie's here tonight, and I just thought, with 20 years working with me, if you get to put in 24 more, you can get the 44 that I've done. So.
That's not going to happen.
Also tonight, the new treasurer, Ahmet Godwin-Frieder. Got to work with him a couple of days already, and I can tell you the financial department here is going to get along just fine without me. I'm a little nervous about it being way better than it was with me. That could be too. Just to close, I wanted to say that, you've heard me say this before if you've been around me, but there was a quote from a song from the 1970s that kind of applies to my career, and maybe you'll know this song if you were around back then or you like classic rock. And that quote is, "What a long, strange trip it's been." It's been a good one, but long.
right. Up next, we have something special I'm kind of looking forward to because it's a little unusual, a different kind of report to the board. So we invited in some folks to have a kind of an informal conversation about the Sugarcreek Elementary brick building downtown. Obviously, everybody's welcome to comment on this. We want to hear your comments. But if you didn't receive an invitation to this part, we're going to have public comment period time right after this. If you need to put your name down, there's a sign-in sheet at the door. Everybody's welcome to give comments. But for a little bit of context, just a few seconds, and then obviously we can get into more of this once we begin this conversation, is that in October, the board has received one report, which was really just kind of some facts and figures and some numbers about the finances involved with that building, potential future liabilities and costs of that building. And that's really all the place that we are at this point. We're very early in this conversation. Want to make sure to hear from everybody, have lots of public input. So tonight, we invited some partners from the city and the township and the Parks Department, all the tenants, of course, also the Lions Club, because they own a very small portion of land there. So if those folks want to come down front here in the front row, we're just going to kind of have an informal conversation. We need more chairs. We can grab some. Yeah.
Pull up your chairs too.
Grab some more chairs.
Here, let's do that. I'll come to the extra.
However you want to be, sir. Just get comfy. Come on down. Meredith, need a chair?
I turned the lights down.
Jenny, squeeze in here. We've got some room maybe over on the side for sure. So maybe we'll just quickly kind of go down the road, maybe starting down here, just a quick introduction so we can meet everybody and then we'll get rolling.
We're just talking about the school building, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tim Procunier, and I'm here with the Bellbrook Amateur Radio Club. It's in one of the rooms there. And is this a time for me to speak or just?
Well, we'll just do some introductions if that's okay, and then we'll just open the floor to anybody here in just a second. Maybe we'll let
Okay,
everybody
great.
introduce themselves.
Understood.
Yeah, thank you.
Having a hard time here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
My name is Roy Sherwood. I'm the pastor at Bellbrook Bible Church, one of the tenants at Sugarcreek Elementary.
I'm Carolyn DeStefani. I'm a trustee for Sugarcreek Township.
I'm Ernie Havens, Deputy Mayor, City of Bellbrook, but here in the capacity of the Community Improvement Corporation, more so than that tonight.
Logan Ashley, Councilman for the City of Bellbrook.
Forrest Greenwood, Councilman of the City of Bellbrook.
Good evening, Jim Yankel. I'm representing the Bellbrook Lions Club, past president.
Adam Pansingle, I'm the Scoutmaster of Boy Scout Troop 375, which meets in the building.
Jeff Stewart, Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Park District.
I'm Meredith Brinegar. I'm here representing Bellbrook Girl Scouts, one of the tenants of the building.
Jen LeClaire, Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Community Support Center Board Chair.
Cindy Compercio, Executive Director, Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Community Support Center.
Terry Graves Streeter, Green County Educational Service Center Superintendent, and we rent space in the one-story building down in Bellbrook.
Well, again, really appreciate you coming out on a cold night during a busy holiday season. So we purposely didn't have like a plan for this. There's not an agenda. I definitely don't want it to be like, okay, you sir are now recognized. We just want to have a conversation, any input that you have, any ideas. So we'll just see how that goes. But the floor is open. We can have a little bit of a back and forth, a little bit of a conversation.
Hi, Tim from the Bellbrook Amateur Radio Club. We've been a tenant in that building, in the basement, in one of the rooms. Since about 2002, 2003. When we got that location due to the cooperation of Fred Stone, who's recently passed away, and Dr. St. Pierre, who was really nice to us about that. Part of the things that Ham Radio Club does is they coordinate the Sugar Maple Festival Parade and the Lions Club Parade. We provide the communications, direct the traffic, get everything set up. It's all possible because we have a location in that room to set our equipment up. We also provide emergency communications for the police department the fire department, and an ARES group in Ohio, that's Amateur Radio Emergency Services. And that's set up as a emergency communications center in case all hell breaks loose. And we appreciate each of us in that room. We've made very good use of it. We're serving the community out of it. I understand at some point it may need to be sold or bulldozed down. We need a room somewhere. Then we'll be okay. As long as we can just duplicate what we have somewhere else, we'll participate any way we can. That's all I have, sir.
Tim, I have a question for you. I'll try to speak up. In addition to just that room, you all have
Well, we got
network
an
center
interior
on the
tower,
roof and
yeah, on the
everything.
building, on top of the building, which roof access would be beneficial no matter where.
Okay, so that's what I was gonna ask. What, in addition to just a room, what other kinds of things would your
Well,
organization be looking
a tall tower is nice, but not necessary, but we need a room. We just need a room, yeah, and we can take care of it ourselves. Yes, ma'am.
I'm familiar with the clubhouse down there, but do you have the size of footprint that you,
Well, I don't have it offhand. I know it's one of those rooms that's got a center divider on it. It could be split into two. So if that helps you judge the space of that. Again, all we need is another room to set up. We can continue to provide the services to Bellbrook and Sugarcreek Township.
Do you need continuous access to it, like daily?
Yes, sir,
all
just like
hours?
we have right now. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because you never know. It could be 3 in the morning when we're called into action. Appreciate you asking.
thank you.
Are you tied, sorry, I have one more question. Are you tied to Bellbrook, or are you more Greene County? Or would your organization be open to something in the township, or does it have to be in the city, or?
Well, it's kind of split up. It is city of Bellbrook, and then it is some township, and then it is some Greene County that we provide support for. And there's no other communications center like that in the whole county that would serve all that area. There's something for Beaver Creek Fire Department has a little auxiliary group going on, but that only serves Beaver Creek City. And we would serve the whole county. We're prepared to.
I'll go ahead and
Yes,
go.
ma'am.
I'm speaking about the one-story building first, but I also like to put in a little bit more regarding the entire area that, like, the big building, land, and all of that. So first of all, we've rented the space for our special ed programs and alternative high school and middle school down at the Bellbrook site for, I think, 13 years. I intended to look that up today, and I didn't, so Kevin, maybe you know. But we've been down there for quite a while. We have anywhere between 50 and 60 students in the building. We serve several students from Bellbrook and then all of the other districts in the county. And that space is perfect for us. So I absolutely hate the idea of not having that space. But Doug's given us heads up over the years that, you know, things could change, and I understand that. We would be very interested in buying that building. If, in fact, everything's for sale and it's all on the table at the same time, we would be interested in that purchase. We don't know costs, we don't know renovation costs, we don't know any of those things. Kind of planning for the unknown right now. If we were not to be able to be in that space downtown, I'd probably need a whole nother year outside of this year to plan for the next place we could go. So there's that to consider. I definitely want this to be a win-win for us. I know other entities are interested in the space that they're currently in, if we could make a win-win out of that, so everybody gets what they want. I think that would be the perfect thing to do. I know that's maybe wishful thinking and rose-colored glasses, but I do think there's a possibility there. And we definitely, the ESC, would be interested in purchasing. And what that looks like, whether it's small, all, land, that's to be determined. Any questions for me?
If you were potentially to purchase the entire thing, I would assume opportunity to expand into the whole thing? Or do you have people, do you have
We have
other
programs.
needs for space within the ESC?
We do. I don't know that we would move some of our other programs. I mean, some of the programs we rent space in several locations in the county, and serve an array of students in different programming. It doesn't make sense to have all of it in one place. We have a place at Wright State, and that makes sense because it's on Wright State's campus. We rent space in the new Emerge Center in Xenia, but we also get access to their Trades Institute for students there. So there's just a whole lot of things to consider, but we also need more office space, so that could be a consideration. Would we need all the land? No, and that would be something that we'd be interested in. If we bought all of it, part and parcel, we would possibly sell land, you know. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'm just talking out loud, dreaming a little bit, but that would be I would definitely want to focus on the one-story building to start. I mean, I know that needs some work, and that would probably be where we start, and then we look at where we want to add office space and other possible programming in the other building if that were even doable. So, those are.
If you were to purchase, would you seek state funding for that, or how would you?
Unfortunately, ESCs don't qualify for state funding.
Well, we qualify for just very little state funding.
I know what your formula looks like with fair school funding, and it's certainly, I heard you say 23%, I think was the word you said, for what you get in state funding. No, we would have to go for a loan, and we've been talking about what that looks like, so. We use our services that we provide, the districts pay for. We get a lot of grant funding for certain things, but that wouldn't pay for buildings. So we'd have to get a loan and use revenue to pay mortgage. Any other questions?
There's no way to say this without coming off as crass, so
That's all right.
apologies in advance, but to pay off that loan, the revenue comes from us, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, partially, and our neighbor district, right? But
Well, yes.
we do, we contract with you for services, and so right now we're concerned about impending risk that building could bring. And we also are your customer, right? So we could end up flipping and still paying a portion, right? Like if prices went up for the services that we need from you that we can't provide for ourselves at this time. So
Good point. That's a really good point.
and I don't want to say that to. I really am just trying to. When we're talking about the ESC, we would be a buyer or we would be a seller to you, but then we are also a customer to you. So that's a consideration that is in the back of my brain.
You're already paying rental. I mean, what the cost of the program includes the cost of rental, so that would kind of be a similar, I don't know what the cost exactly would be, but it would definitely be similar.
I'm Eric Eppers, I'm the board president for the ESC, and I think it's a very good point, except the alternative would be whether it's that school, which is perfectly fit for exactly what we're doing. I mean, it was great. I went to school at, Sugar Creek Elementary, walking the halls in 4th grade, going back and seeing the kids and the kids with the most needs in those classrooms and filling it was really wonderful to see. We'll have to have that same sort of facility. So whether it's a facility there or if it's a facility someplace else, there's costs that work into the formulas for sure.
Definitely space is always factored into what the districts pay for our services.
I'm just curious, did you see the previous report where there was possibly a looming $750,000 worth of maintenance sort of rooming with the air conditioning and roof? Would that be something you guys would be able to manage through?
we'd have to look at all of the pieces, but there's certainly, we have a building right now that we maintain that has a flat roof, and we understand, we just did a major exterior project on that building. So we do understand what that looks like and what that might mean, and how we would plan for a facilities project.
Awesome.
Sir?
Our agency has some land that abuts the school property, Park District. And again, I apologize if this has already been out there. I watched the video that was sent. But has the board discussed, is this going to be a auction, or is this going to be a potential bargain sale, donation, fair market value? Any discussions on, I guess, the price, on how much this would be? And I guess the second
This
part.
is our market research.
You're
It's a great question, because we haven't had any discussion whatsoever about that. We received, I don't know if that's the video you saw, but we received a report that was prepared by our lawyer about what are the very few legal options that we have that we can to divest the property, and that's truly as far as we've gotten. We've not had any discussions about that yet. Again, we're very early in this. We don't want to rush anything. Certainly don't want to jump to any bad decisions too quickly. So that's why you're here. And maybe if you're willing, you'll be able to come back for a future meeting if we need more. We're just getting started here.
Yeah. And I think it was really important for us as a board to involve our community as soon as we knew that this was going to be in the forecast. So we just wanted to involve you guys every step of the way. So that's why.
So any decisions on whether you'd be willing to subdivide, break the building off, and it's still, everything's up in the air.
Everything's on the table at this point, so state your preferences. If you
Yeah.
have a preference, like, say it here, because I think anybody else, if there's people who want a piece part and somebody else who wants a piece part, team up and come up with a solution that maybe is amenable, like.
Yeah, again, I've only heard, there's rumors, and there was some wild ideas out there.
Super
that
wild
sounded
rumors on social media.
Yeah, pretty good ones.
Uniformly untrue.
Yeah, and we don't, as a park district, there's property that has high interest and high value, and that's something, we could certainly potentially use it. I think you had mentioned in the video, actually, about the parking, that a lot of the athletic
You
groups,
use it now.
they use that area for parking, and it is helpful in that regard. The building, we're probably, the park district's, we're poorer than you guys are, so we would make terrible landlords to do that, and we couldn't afford a demo on a structure like that anyway. So, but parking would be some value, I think, for at least from a park district perspective, for those athletic organizations, potential area. That's some high ground. It's not perfect. I think it's still some floodplain up in that area, but certainly some proper restroom facilities or something like that. So that would be as far as we would probably anything we'd like to see. But again, if there's a higher or better value for use, certainly we wouldn't scream too hard about it or anything.
Well, right now that really is, yes, we own it, but it's very much a flex property, right? Sometimes it's the festival grounds, and sometimes it's the parking lot for the ball fields, and sometimes, so it's it truly is a community space right now, and I think we all like to see it stay in a community space in some way. It's just, what does that look like?
You mentioned maybe a restroom. Is there any thoughts or plans of future improvements or for that? Or?
Well, it would be, again, a little bit dependent on how the sale, donation, bargain sale, that parcel, our agency uses grant funding quite a bit, and unfortunately that particular piece of property, there's some value there, it's not necessarily when we apply for conservation-based grants and things, it's hard to get for a park district anyway, to get grant funding for demolition of a structure, for example, or if we tell somebody we want to build a parking lot.
Yeah.
They usually,
Pave it.
that's when their minds explode. So our avenues aren't gonna be the same as, let's say, the city of Bellbrook. The city of Bellbrook may have funding sources and grant opportunities, brownfield redevelopment and whatnot, that we wouldn't be eligible for. But, yeah, I mean, is it the best use for that property to put a parking lot and a restroom facility? It is for us. It is for the athletic groups that use that facility. But, you know, for the community as a whole, I don't know. Again, I've heard some pretty cool ideas thrown about that may make better sense.
This may be very early in the game, but has the district made any determination as to when realistically you'll be in a position to make a decision?
At that previous meeting in October, I know it was, sorry, at the November meeting, I know it was mentioned, what I heard more was try to gather as much input as possible, have as many opportunities for getting information in by like February-ish. I don't remember hearing a commitment to like make a decision, but set up as many opportunities to hear from people as possible by mid-ish February, something like that. Does anybody remember anything else?
I think it was having some serious conversations and thoughts starting in February. Not making necessarily any decisions, but of serious thoughts and considerations and starting in February.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, it's a balance between letting whoever really has skin in the game and an opinion, be able to express that, come forward with ideas, offers, opportunities, and then take a look at what we've got and make a decision. I personally, speaking for me, you guys can all chime in, I don't want this to be something that draws out for a year or 2 years. That's not my intention. I do want to have enough time to hear what the consensus is from the community, the different thoughts, and then I think we have serious conversations and we make a call. That's my personal take. I don't know if that jives with what you all think.
Sorry, I said I didn't want to like recognize people, and here I am. Just start speaking up.
Jim Ankle from the Bellbrook Lions Club. So I've got some notes because I'm going to keep my thoughts here. Bellbrook Lions Club owns the property at 31 Southeast Street, adjacent to Sugar Creek Elementary, with an access easement through the school property to our property. And I'm really happy to have this opportunity to share some thoughts. The Bellbrook Lions Club was chartered in '47. We've been serving our community with the mission of building community spirit, helping local youth develop, advance community and world health, and stewards of community resources. One of our major fundraisers is the Lions Summerfest, held at Sugar Creek Elementary grounds for nearly 70 years. The festival is important as it not only is a major fundraiser, but it brings the community together with activities like music, camaraderie for all citizens of all ages. And you talk to anybody in Bellbrook, they know the Lions Club if they've ever been involved. So this financial support allows the Lions to support many local activities, annual donations to the police and fire departments for their needs, the Sugar Creek schools, such as high school supportive peers, the Good program, various athletic teams, just about all of them, brand new marching band uniforms, Stephen Bell playground maintenance, our most recent public-private partnership building of the $400,000 plus all-inclusive Eagle Land 2, as well as support to the Community Resource Center, the Bellbrook Historical Museum, Camp Dovetail, Neighbors Helping Neighbors, it just goes on. So we propose that the usage of Sugar Creek Elementary property continue to benefit all of the community as much as possible, perhaps through public-private partnerships. We've dabbled in it a little bit, and we've had some success. The infrastructure and land space at Sugar Creek Elementary is currently large enough for our Lions Festival, but it will be a challenge to find another location elsewhere in the community for us. And the loss of the current embedded infrastructure will just be an added challenge. So our thoughts, and we put a little thinking visionary group together on this, is a good portion of this land is in a floodplain, so that's really got to be considered. But with proper planning, the land can still be used for endless community-focused functions. The Lions, we have an interest for a new clubhouse, which could also serve as a senior center for the community, or community meeting space. Additionally, we'd be interested in building an open-air music venue or a stage that could be used by the community and the festivals, or a potential splash pad, or expanded future use by Sugar Maple Festival if we were able to get some of these infrastructures in place. With the land on the higher grounds, perhaps a portion could be used by the park district in the back corner for such things as parkings, restrooms, or concessions to support Lions baseball activities, Bellbrook Say Soccer, and Wee Eagle activities that occur at Sackett Bright. So the Lions feel strongly about the quality of life in our community, and we believe with public-private partnerships and working together, we may be able to find a solution for continued and expanded community usage of the Sugar Creek Elementary grounds. So as a landowner adjacent to the school grounds, the Bellbrook Lions Club asked to be included in future reutilization discussions of the property, because I think it could be done if we all work together for the community. That's all I've got.
Thank you so much. I don't want anything to happen to the Lions Club. I know we lose money on this building, but the Lions Club donates more than we lose back to us every year. I mean, I'm pretty sure. So I just hope, I want this to work out, you know, great for everybody somehow. So that, I hope we can all work together and make that happen.
Maybe I'm uneducated about this. Does the school board know what the value of the building is and what they actually want to do with it, whether donate or sell it? Is there like a general idea of what the school board wants to do with the building? No?
We don't know, we're here to find out what we want to do.
Okay. I guess that helps us kind of know, like, hey, do you have to raise the money for it, or is the school district able to go, hey, guess what? Here you go.
And I think it was appraised, I think Dr. Kozad, has all those figures.
Okay.
But no, none of us have made any decisions yet, because that's not, we wanted input first.
Few comments from the city of Bellbrook for me. I've lived in the old village for 40-something years. The housing and the areas around that building have enjoyed peace and tranquility, you know, being a school and even the Lion Club festivals, the sports and stuff, it's been a fit. So the only thing I would ask, if in the future of any entity that wants to do something there, in your mind, just think, if you live across the street, is that something you would like to live next to? That's all I'm asking. Because as recent history with Centerville, the Bellbrook Farm, the 30 units they want to put in Bellbrook with apartments, a lot of high spirits came to meetings and expressed their thoughts about the use of those lands. So as we move forward, that's all I ask people. You know, one thing was mentioned, somebody would cut it up into some kind of apartments and, you know, make an undesirable situation for the residents downtown. And that's all I'm asking, is just pay attention, and would you want to live next to it? So, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a really good conversation, gentleman that goes to our church, Pete, he's come to some of your meetings, lives right there on Main Street. He and I talked exactly about that, just on Sunday. So I give you my word, our word, like, for sure, that conversation is really important. Whatever it is, can't negatively detract from the houses that are right in the front yard of that property, for sure.
It's not my area of expertise, but I believe, you know, with So I've heard with respect to transaction of property that you can do like deed restrictions and things like that for the follow-on purchasers, so they can't go in there and put, a Costco there or whatever,
But
so.
we could do that as a city also. We
They're,
do.
Good,
they're already in place.
okay.
Residential 1, residential 2, that's it.
Yeah, that's something frankly I'm kind of ignorant about, and I want to learn a whole lot more, and hopefully you folks can help out. Like, just for me, just one person, that's my fear a little bit about the whole option of just put it up to the highest bidder. Only if there's very good community input about what is in bounds and what is out of bounds for that. That's what makes it unattractive to me about just going up for the highest bidder, because I would much rather all of this community input be able to craft something that's for the good community, like we've heard many times. But I'm kind of ignorant about that stuff. I'm gonna need some help on what is allowed and what isn't allowed based on various options. And I know obviously zoning helps out with that a lot.
And I'll make the comment that I really appreciate this setup. I mean, this probably doesn't happen very often anywhere. And different, I think that's why we're so desirable, because we do talk to each other. I mean, seriously, pick up the phone, call, ask questions, this and that, open about it, put it out there. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, this is a different scenario than probably most any district is in, where we have a school building. Usually a district vacates a building and then they put it up for sale, or they get rid of it. They don't hang on to it for a number of years and have tenants in it, and then everybody starts using it in different ways and then need to make a decision. And so we have to approach this differently than anyone else does, because there are so many stakeholders, right?
Okay, okay. I'm going to speak on
Back
behalf
up, arm wrestle.
of Girl Scouts. And we're, let me just tell you a little bit about how we use the building. And we can't even figure out how long we've been here, because the turnover, we think it could be 15 to 20 years, but it's been a number of years. We actually have 2 rooms. It's kind of like a suite, where we have one that has a large room for meeting space, and so troops can sign it out. We have a system to use. And we also have a room where we store a lot of our things, like for our booth for the Sugar Maple Festival or things like that, right? I would say that we would love to have keep some kind of meeting space in a perfect world. That's probably not as critical in some ways as our storage space, because we are able to often meet at schools or churches or things like that. And in fact, sometimes the building, the girls like, it's a little creepy at night sometimes, right? It's an older building. But we do have the space to use it for meetings if we need to. But the storage is really critical, I think, and that just is we have troops from grades kindergarten through 12th grade, and so we just want to be a part of the ongoing conversation. We're probably even poorer than the Park District. Right?
I don't know.
So we don't have, we can't offer financial resources. But what we hope we can do, and I'll forward you the email that I composed. I don't know how formal this was going to be. I got input of just projects in the last few years of all the ways, whether it's gold awards, silver awards, bronze awards, that have touched the school district in particular, the Park District. I mean, we put it in the storybook trail. One of our Girl Scouts did that for her, gold award. We've had a community garden in partnership with the Community Support Center. I mean, there's all ways I feel like we contribute projects directly to the community, as well as I think just teaching our girls to be leaders and good citizens, right, that are going to continue to do this throughout their life. So I just would love to have continued space, whether it's whoever takes an interest in it. And I'd like to see even more community organizations in a perfect world than are currently even using it, right? I think we could grow, because I think that's just it's what makes a healthy community, when we have organizations and places for people to come together where you might not normally interact with each other. So that's my a little bit how we use it, and we'd love to have continued access to a place like that. I don't think we have a huge investment about that building or a new building.
Meredith, what about access for Girl Scouts? Does that kind of need to be an on-demand sort of thing?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't have to be, right? But we do have it now. We have an outside key, so we can get in at any point. And
you use that pretty often? Or?
it varies, right? Some troops probably never use it, and some troops might meet there every week or a few times a month, right? Yeah.
How many times a month do you meet? Or is it-
Well,
Like different
we
age
also
levels,
use it for
different-
leader meetings as well.
Okay.
Like
Just
leader
remember the
meetings
different
are like
age
once a
groups.
month,
Yeah.
but then troops, again, it really varies. The younger troops probably meet more frequently than the older troops, but they meet at all different locations. Some meet there and some meet in, my troops met at Stephen Bell and BCI. We loved having that for after-school meetings, so it's, that piece is probably a little bit more flexible than meeting space. Yeah.
So less than a handful a month meetings?
Yeah.
Averages.
Can you put a rough swag on how much storage space?
No, I have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah, if you
Like
could,
garage
that'd be great.
size or?
You can
Like
let
a
us know.
small garage size, yeah.
You can let us know in the future, but
Yeah.
I'd like to segue a little
Sure.
bit with what you said, the ecosystems that are in the buildings. The Family Resource Center helps our students a lot. They've given them so much. Lions Club, I know you donated to us into our programs, so I appreciate that. I mean, all of you touch and all of us touch each other's lives, so I do want to concur with you that that is really helpful, especially when you're working with families that are in need.
Can I continue talking of scouts?
Yeah.
So, Boy Scouts are one of your more recent tenants. We got a room there in the last 6 months. It's also on the 3rd floor, it's right next to your room.
Yeah.
We meet there every Sunday night. There's about 20 scouts and a handful of adult leaders that also meet every Sunday night. And then once or twice a week, we'll have smaller meetings up in that room. We're just looking for a place to meet. We appreciate you guys offering the space for us. Scouting in itself is a great organization, and we just want to be able to continue having strong scouting in Bellbrook. We want to keep our troop in Bellbrook, and by Bellbrook, I mean the community itself, Bellbrook or Sugarcreek Township. And we just thank you guys for letting us use that, and hope to continue something.
thank you for what you and the Girl Scouts do. Great programs. Do you have any storage usage right now, or?
Luckily, the Lions Club lets us use their cage for our trailers. We have 3 trailers, and then we have our items for our meeting up in the room. We've decorated the walls with posters and boards showing, scouting things, and then just the stuff we might have during our meetings are in that room. It's like 2 closets worth of storage right now. As I said, our troop averages between 40 and 50 scouts on any given night. There will be 20 scouts up there because we are very busy. So during, let's say during football season, a good number of the high schoolers are either playing in the band or at football or running on Saturday morning. So we may not see them for a couple of months, but then in the springtime, those scouts are part of the troop, and then the spring athletes we may not see them for a couple months. So on any night, there's probably 20 plus people there.
As I listen to everyone else speak, I'm reflecting on what makes the Community Support Center unique and our needs unique. And it's 2 things together. One is how location specific we are. There are tons and tons of food that we store and distribute. And so we have to be in a location, and we have to have that consistently. And then that together with the immediacy, and maybe the church or Mark would argue, but we have 50 to 75 households that we serve every week, and we can't not serve them. Because these households in Bellbrook and Sugarcreek depend on what we provide. So those 2 things together kind of lead us from Cindy's question about what is the timing? Because as we explore possibilities, our flexibility is so much more limited, I think, than other organizations.
Quite a bit so. And when you take that 50 to 75
families a week number, and you multiply that by an average of 4 in a household, that's easy math to do. And that is a lot of people being served that would be hard to replace if we're not there. And we certainly can't do it mobily. So we have to be in a location. For example, just this week, we took delivery of 3,500 pounds of supplies to even be able to store that somewhere.
In a temperature control.
Right.
Right, you know, with no pests and, I mean.
Right. So.
I have a question related to that. So if the ESC ended up in the one-story building, are you utilizing that full building at the moment, or could the community support center? I was wondering if there was space in that building if the other building was.
Almost every crevice of that.
Every crevice, okay, because that would have been ideal, if they could just move their stuff over to that building.
We use a lot of that space, and it's definitely utilized.
Okay.
Is there any space available right now, Dr. Koza, that's not being used? Additional space maybe?
It's not being used, no.
No, okay.
No.
So there's no room for us to like advertise for more tenants to help offset costs?
You mean at the 3-story?
Yes.
Or the?
The 3-story.
It is pretty full. I don't think there is a room that is vacant.
Okay.
I'll go next. So as far as Sugar Creek Township, first I'd like to commend you as a board. So I've been a trustee for 9 years, and I've been to a lot of these kind of meetings, and you are doing a very excellent job as far as being transparent, bringing all of the community together, having these discussions, and I'd say this is the model for the right way to do this kind of meeting. So thank you for that. We truly appreciate that. And from there, the township, I've taken this, the message and the slides from your meeting, 2 meetings ago, to our board, and we've talked it over, and we do not, as Sugar Creek Township, have any need for the property or any of the buildings. So long story short, we're not interested in the building or the properties in that regard. The one thing we do care about, though, is in that discussion, are you going to go highest bidder or have something more community-oriented, which it sounded like the lawyers were kind of giving you those options. We very much would like to see it stay more community-oriented, use whatever you go with that. And then I wanted to also make sure that you have some awareness. Jeff Stewart actually just mentioned it a little bit, but we were in a zoning meeting at St. Clair University just last Friday, and they mentioned brownfield remediation programs. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Governor DeWine started in 2021 an $8.6 million grant program for remediation. And I'll give you the definition of a brownfield is an abandoned, idled, or underused industrial, commercial, or institutional property where known or potential releases of hazardous substances or petroleum complicate expansion or redevelopment. And I think if you have asbestos issues, that would qualify. There's actually 2 examples in Greene County of old schools being demolished to do that. The one caveat with that is that you as the school couldn't do that. You would have to tie in with a governmental institution, which the Community Improvement Corporation would be eligible for that. So I've got one copy of the paperwork I could give to Mike or Dr. Kozin. I don't know who would want that. So that's some information about that. But it could be possible, obviously there'd be a lot to explore there, but I wanted to at least make you aware that that is an option for potential money from the government to help with the demolition of the, particularly the 3-story building.
But you said schools can't access that?
You can't without, if you partner with a governmental organization such as the CIC, there you could utilize it. So that I think that's kind of been the model, how it's been utilized in the state, but they've got a lot of money that they're offering for that right now. So that could be helpful. Yeah.
I think, doesn't that come into play only when you do a demolition?
Yes, but I know one of the options was to at least demolish the 3-story building in particular, because there's a lot of issues there, and it's not ADA compliant, there's just a lot.
So depending, if it goes that direction, then that could be used.
Yes, it could be used if that's one of the options on the table.
I'll speak here. First off, I want to talk about the 1916, the Boy Scouts did a ghost hunt in school and verified there are no ghosts in there. Protected. And just one quick note from the city, speaking from the city's perspective, as a councilman, Dr. Kozad's slides mentioned that the city had interest. I do want to clarify what that interest means. We have interest because it's in the city. There's no quantified interest in purchasing the building or the property as the city. However, and this is the main reason I'm here, is as president of the Bellbrook Community Improvement Corporation, I want to share with you just a little information about what that organization is all about and how it can be used. And probably the best example that I can provide, there are several examples out there that you can search. In Troy, they use it extensively. It's more so a tool than it is an organization, but it is technically a corporation that falls under the city. And in Yellow Springs, in particular, the example I'll cite, they had a firehouse that was no longer really needed in the city, and they didn't particularly want it to go up to the highest bidder because God knows what will go in there. And if I want to sort of cite how our city's experienced that, if we want to try to avoid the eyesore that we're currently dealing with in downtown Bellbrook on the corner of Franklin and Main, I think that that's the most important thing to keep in mind as a guidepost for us, as we want this to go in the right direction for the city. And so Yellow Springs chose to put the firehouse into the Community Improvement Corporation. The Community Improvement Corporation, from that point, is allowed to basically say, hey, we're looking for ideas, business proposals. What do you got for us for this building? And basically receive business proposals from various entities throughout the Dayton area as to, hey, maybe we would like to put business XYZ or business ABC or CBE into this area. And they're able to do that in a private manner so that they don't have to expose their business plans. And then the CIC has the ability to make a decision to choose one of those to be the best interest of the community and go with that and not have to be subject to the highest bidder. And it's a little known fact that that's the huge benefit of a CIC. So with that, the CIC has no interest, no ideas, no wishes, but we're here to help. It was put in place a year and a half ago, primarily because we have city buildings in our downtown that might not be the best use for the space in our downtown to have our city industrial park in our downtown. So eventually, someday, our hope is we could transition those buildings to better usage, and the CIC would be an avenue to accomplish that. With that said, this building is not owned by the city, but in the event that we find a pathway that the city might take ownership of this, then the city could place that building into the CIC, and the CIC would be able to sort of negotiate and navigate the challenges to make sure that we have a use that considers, the best of what the community needs. And I stand side by side with what Councilman Forrest said. You know, we want to make sure we're thinking about the people across the street that have to sit on their porch and look across the street and see what's there. And, you know, be able to enjoy their property. And that certainly would be a factor. Lions Club's ideas, those are something that we might be able to help make a reality. There might actually even be a joint opportunity with one or more other entities that sit here that are throwing out ideas that we could help bring to fruition. And so my point in being here and sharing this information is, most people don't know what a CIC is, what the purpose is. We're here to help. If you want our help, reach out. You know how to reach me, Ernie Higgins. Thanks.
Thank you. Frank, question about, so in order for the CIC to, call it, manage that facility, the city would have to take possession first and then put it into the CIC portfolio, if you will. Is that
Correct.
accurate? Okay.
And just to clarify, you guys mentioned it, that you don't have, you're not cash flush, city's not cash flush either. CIC is like not cash flush either, so,
So
but there is a
collectively,
pathway.
none of us have any money. Anyone come with some money? You
Check
got
money.
money? Oh, he raised his hand back there, that guy's got money. No, all right.
It's kind of a question, it's probably way putting the cart before the horse, but it's kind of the question I will have no matter what all of the options will be is, and so I'll just pick on you, you went last with CIC, is like, can, and again, this is probably a question for lawyers, Dr. Kriza, I mean, can the school, if there's to be a decision to move forward something, can the school place guidelines or constraints or conditions of like, I'm sure you wouldn't do this, but what if we sold it, gave it to the CIC, and you immediately rezoned it and wanted to put in something awful, like?
We would prefer that you did that. Give us as many restrictions as possible.
So that is a
and
thing?
we'll navigate those waters, because
Is that like
we wouldn't
binding,
want to
though?
upset you.
Yeah. No, right.
Seriously. I mean,
Would
you
that be
gotta,
like binding, or like if somebody then went against those restrictions, it would fall back to us? Or?
as long as, if it doesn't work out, we can hand it back to you. Yeah.
I think attorneys would advise you on that, because there are things that people want, like if you donate land and then they say, well, we want this and this and this, and 20 years from now, whoever's still holding the land is like, no, we want to let it go. But now there's all these restrictions, so that's definitely a thing that attorneys need to get involved in.
Any option we go, we definitely want an attorney involved.
Sure.
Yeah, we need
But I
to
would
restrict
imagine
property
giving it to the
concept.
highest bidder, you probably lose a lot of control, but that's just, if everybody will remember, please, that'll be a question I have no matter what the 7 options are in the future, is how much guidance can a community-directed school board provide to help make sure something awful doesn't happen?
To me, there's less concern about that if we're transferring this property to the city, the town, another government entity, and that it's currently beholden to the taxpayer, to the voter,
True.
and it would still be beholden to the taxpayer voter. Now, maybe a different pool, whereas we're city and township, maybe it would just be city, but it would still be, in a sense, public property and have to answer to the voter in that way, differently than if we were to sell it to a private.
Good discussion. What else we got?
I'd be happy to speak. My comments are probably more suited to public comment time, so I might hop in that whenever we transition.
You're welcome to now if you want, but if you want to wait, it's your call.
I'm just gonna put it over there.
All right, sounds good, yeah. Sure. I mean, I'd like to have like, if even possible, if there are some action, are there any action items that should come out of this? I always end up my work meetings with like, okay, are there action items, or what do you want, what do you need, what do you want, what do we need, and maybe we're not even ready for that? Yes, sir.
If a decision is made and the tenants are going to have to find new homes, we would like as much time as possible.
Sure.
6 months would be good. You know, coming in and asking someone to, hey, can we meet at your place for free? That's a big ask for anybody, and it takes a special group to say yes. So if we could have time, that'd be great.
Well, and there's always the option of, when we make a decision, we move on it with the understanding that whoever takes ownership has to provide, like any taking over of any lease, that you have to provide our tenants X amount of time, whatever. But that's also, potentially we could provide that time without owning the facility anymore, right? Like any other transfer of rented property.
I think the land bank, you give your property to the land bank, there's restrictions about the usage of the land that come with the property. And Jeff, you might know more about that. Forever. People donate land, you can't just do what you want with it, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of, we put conservation easements, for example, on a lot of our property. Sometimes they're forced by the state for the grant mechanism we use. Sometimes we put them on Sweet Air Reserve. We put a perpetual conservation easement on that entire property. So it's deed, and you can set up a deed restriction however you want it to look like. You know, you can say the existing buildings are fine, make an allotment for maybe an additional small parking lot or walking trail or whatever, and then short of that, you know, there's no additional building, or this can't occur or that can't occur. So you can make it look like, and you can make that follow the deed. And that's always, I mean, all the attorneys will normally tell you that you want to make sure that have that clause in there. So if it does get sold to, you guys give it to the park district, everybody likes the same, when they don't vote for our levies, we go out of business, and then that, I think it ends up going to the township at that point. And then they're like, well, we don't want it, and they auction it off. You lose control of it. So you want that to follow the deed. And so in perpetuity be protected. You just have to find a responsible person to kind of hold that easement, I guess, as a partner. A lot of times we'll use sister park districts or Greene County Park District or something like that, and then they can come and, you know, verify that the conditions of those deeds or the restrictions are being met. But there's a lot of different, you know, and there's some good attorneys, expensive, but they're good in the Dayton area that do some of that conservation easement work.
I can say that if the property was to change hands to a private entity, the only thing it's zoned for is residential 1 and 2.
Explain that, Ernie, what is one?
Yeah.
What is it,
Single-family
residential
home,
one and?
single-family home, double-family home.
Oh.
So,
So
not
So
apart,
it's
not
single or a
apartments,
duplex, that's all it's
not
needed.
a storefront, no shopping malls,
No,
nothing
apartments.
like that.
And the city controls that zone, right?
Yes, city council does.
Okay, so-
I mean, they can be changed, but they'd have to
Right. But
vote on that.
It could be changed, but we put it in place to prevent, specifically, the last thing we would want to do is have a construction company come in and just use it for storage for the next 20 years. Because that's going to sort of break down what Forrest was mentioning, what we don't want, and we don't want to do to the residents that have to look at it every day. And that should be considered with anybody that has ideas, and make sure they understand that.
Ernie, is that in the wellfield protection area?
It is.
It is?
Yeah, over.
Which would be another consideration. What goes in there.
And it's a sort of an unknown reality. Like literally, if you take a shovel out there and you dig a hole 2 feet deep, there's our drinking water.
Here, your wells are real close.
We dig 18 inches down in our fenced area and it fills up with water. So that's where we're at. So there's a good portion in the floodplain. So I don't know if there's an action, but, you know, listening to all of this, is there an opportunity to maybe come back with additional ideas?
So at this point, an informal and then a formal manner. So what we have planned on going forward in the future, and again, Mr. Kinsey, I apologize, it was the October meeting, I apologize for that, corrected you incorrectly earlier. Coffee chats, we're gonna have some coffee chats in January, and so, those dates are, I can give those dates.
Thank you.
But a couple coffee chats in January, and then we have a board meeting planned later in the month in January that we can come back and solicit some more ideas, and then, those are the things that we were talking about, and also in the bridge in January, we're gonna have an article about this, so letting everybody know, that everybody in the community gets the bridge, so letting everybody know in the community, hey, we're having these conversations, we're talking about this, there's a couple coffee chats coming up, there's a board meeting, and so additional opportunities for people, sometimes it takes a little while for word to get out a little bit, but additional opportunities for people to come back for additional information. Again, obviously, if the board wants, anytime during a board meeting or any board meeting during open comments, that people can provide comments at that point, but it can be up to the board if we want to do another one of these or something like this in the future. But there are definitely at least 3 opportunities coming up in January to provide additional, 2 a little bit more informal, 1 in a board meeting.
Thank you. And if you've got additional ideas, please call, email myself, Dr. Kozat, if you want to do another one of these sometime, if you've got a better idea, another idea, if you want to, come do a report to the board, if you've got a slide presentation or something, I mean, let us know, no promises, but let us know what you want, and what you think, and we're open for it.
January 21st from 3 to 4 p.m. at Winans, and then the 22nd, 9 to 10 at Bellhop.
Can you repeat those?
Yep, so January 21st, 3 to 4 at Winans, and then January 22nd from 9 to 10 at Bellhop.
Cool.
And then we have the January 25th, if that meeting, the 2025 meeting passes tonight, we have a resolution for a future meeting in January, or for 2025, 8 a.m.
That's our work session, our retreat.
Yes, it's a Saturday session. Yep, it's a Saturday session, January 25th.
Does school or board have any ideas about a sale and amount of sale? Does money from a sale matter in this situation? You're talking about possibly donations. I know everything's open, I understand. It would be nice for you to get a big check, I know.
Sure.
Sure,
But-
but that may not be in the best interest of our community.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's
there's
not an issue
a price
really
on
for.
our community, so no, we're not out to get, $4 million to fund that's not where we're at.
Okay.
I think it all depends too, like, right now, that's owned by the community. So if we're gonna transfer it to another community organization that we're still owned by the community, that's probably a different thing and a different price tag and everything versus if we are going to transfer it somewhere that is not owned by our community or is owned by a countywide organization, that's a different thing because it's owned by our community, now it's owned by a broader community so I think that the answer to that is always, I think, it depends because yes, we have to look out for the school district and our own financial interests, but our financial interests are that of our taxpayers, which are the same as your taxpayers and your taxpayers, right? So.
Okay, that clears it up.
Yeah, and maybe it's just me, maybe everybody else has moved past, but for me, I think we're still very much in, do we want to do anything at all? I mean, maybe a lot of people will watch this meeting tonight and we'll get 1,000 emails tomorrow saying, well, no, we want the school to continue losing $60,000 a year. And I mean, it could be there's great missions and we love what people do and, maybe, and people are okay with the status quo, but I think because of that annual loss and the hefty potential risks in, whether it's 5 days or 5 years or 10 years coming down the pike, I just think it's responsible to have this conversation. But who knows? Maybe people, if none of y'all got super awesome ideas that everybody loves, maybe we'll keep status quo for a little bit. But I think it's great to be having this conversation and at least exploring all the options.
Right, and I love Dr. Pryor's point that the amount of donations we get back from the people that are in there more than cover our loss. It's those looming big capital improvements that are kind of concerning me personally.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think, go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if it's been distributed to everyone, but we regularly used to have community meetings where we would have the city, the township, the parks, and the school board meet. And it's been about 1.5 years since we've had one of those, and we just keep trying to find a date that'll work for everyone, and it hasn't happened. So we threw out the date on February 3rd at 5 p.m. at the township building. And we'll just say whoever can make it, but we would like for this to be one of the topics of discussion there at that meeting. So again, it's February 3rd, 5 p.m., that's a Monday, at the Sugar Creek Township building.
So that's not a set meeting yet, that's just a proposal you've thrown out?
It's a proposal, we're hoping to just go with it, but if someone has a major conflict, certainly, Barry typically sent that out to every organization today, so if someone knows they have a conflict, let us know, but maybe we can throw another date on the table and actually get something scheduled, because we've been trying for a long time to get this to happen.
Is that before your meeting?
That would be before our meeting, so 5 p.m. and we have till 7, so we'd have at least 2 hours there.
I think it's worth pointing out, just because I've seen some looming rumors of, 7, 8 digits worth of value for this property. Really what squashes that concept is the fact that it's in the floodplain. So the concept of it being prime land to be sold at the high dollar goes out the window really quick. And I think just a casual observer misses that sometimes. So I just kind of wanted to reinforce that we've got to keep that in mind when we're talking about the real value of this to somebody else. So
On that topic of value, and I'm just asking from an educational standpoint, the county assessor listed at over $2 million, but the appraised value is $200,000 to $300,000. Can anyone explain that huge difference?
Age of the building, and what's the structure of it, probably a lot of it. The way it's built, the way it's designed, and specific, and everything else probably got a lot to do with that. All the mechanicals are falling apart, that kind of stuff. Nothing much to do with the value of it.
If somebody's gonna do something differently than that, they have to deal then with the building and facility and so forth.
if the school was paying taxes based on that valuation, it probably would reject it. I don't know, that's a good point, that's a very good point.
Do any of the school board members have a wish or a vision that they personally would like to see done with that site? Have you given any thought to it at all, or?
Well, it would take lots of magic money to appear, but I'd like
Throw
to
the
knock
magic
down
money.
the middle building, because there's community sports center, I ran the food pantry for 2.5 years, we don't like that. Okay, ground floor would be great, and then a big building for the color guard to practice. They're ruining all the gym floors, they need their own space, and they practice 12 hours a day. So it could be, I would love it to still be a place where all the community comes together and helps each other, and the Lions Club still uses it, and the Girl Scouts, and when I ran the food pantry, I ran over clothes and food to the kids at the school next door, and I came up here with winter coats when the principal told, hey, I've got a kid who doesn't have dinner, and so everyone helped each other, and it's such a great community event, and that's why Bellbrook is so great. So I still love that there's this place where everybody can use and be, and so, I'm not gonna have that go away to be in apartment. So I just hope it can work out great someday.
We lived in the Netherlands for 3 years, in the military, and a common feature of all these little quaint Dutch villages is they have a gemeente house or a gathering house, and it's where people go to. It's where for the Christmas party, it's for the dance, it's for the the King's Day or whatever. So it's and our community kind of feels like those type of communities do over there. So what you were saying, I think, is exactly what we'd like to see it become, or I'd like to see it become. But then, I don't think we're going to stir up any new taxes to go develop that thing. So it's, I'm not sure how they do it over there, but something like that. If there are any Dutch people in the community, we need to go dig them up because they'll know how to help us make some good decisions.
I know I've listened to a lot of speeches and talks that Hope Taft gives about the Blue Line River. and then she come up with an actual monetary amount of value having that river for recreation, and people spend money in businesses, and then they go to the river and they use maybe fishing and boating and kayaking, all these different entities. The space that you have down there in the old school, you talk about Lions Club giving back and all these different amounts that are created there. Is there a way to put something together, put it together and say this is a value that it generates as a community that people can see as far as its true value? I mean, that's value, any way you look at it. It's a place to do those things. Is there?
I think we all agree with you that kind of value, and it's very symbiotic. Just not only do you all help each other, but yeah, the Community Resource Center relies on all of our students and our JROTC to bring you food, and the Lions Club relies on our kids to run the festival, you know, to work at all the festival booths, and it's just, should a school district be serving as the landlord for a thing like that? That's not our mission, right? So how do we put it in the hands of something that is their mission, or that's a collective mission, or a nonprofit, or whatnot? That's the mishmash right now, is that everyone here loves it, but the school board owns it, and that's, you know, the school district owns it, and that's not how it should be. So,
And the building's not gonna last forever.
yeah,
And there's real issues, and the asbestos and.
So crazy idea, just asking the school board if you ever thought about this or if this makes sense. I know there's been some talk about the potential of an athletics facility, there's certainly a need at some level. Has it ever crossed the board's mind to make a plan to tear it down themselves and build a state-of-the-art 5-star athletic facility that would serve the needs of our athletic teams, and put that on a levy to see if the community would pay for it?
in my mind, if we were going to levy money and build an athletic facility, we would put it on land that is here co-located with our schools, where our students are, and not have them have to transition to the downtown.
That could drive it be
We've got
pretty
land
busy,
in the
right?
middle
You
school.
could have a lot of people coming and going, a lot of traffic, a lot of parking, a lot of kids making a lot of noise, and
That's one of the things that the city really likes, is boots on the ground in our downtown, so we would not find that annoying.
But yeah, I think if we were really gonna build something from scratch for a purpose like that, we would want it to be, we have land adjacent to this building even, where we would have kids not have to transition to downtown to take advantage of that. That would be my first thought.
Proximity would not be convenient.
When you talked about the next, I think you asked about next steps and whatnot. I think one of the hopes for tonight is maybe, like, you heard something from you, heard something from you, where you're like, go get together and have lunch, and maybe we can help each other, or maybe we can join forces and come together with a plan or a proposal, or, you know, some thought as to how organizations can team up.
I would welcome that, having a conversation with anybody in this.
Yeah, I would second that, because I've got some
I've got some ideas.
ideas.
Yeah, let's do that. I think it can be a win-win, really do.
Anything else at the moment?
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you so much for coming, seriously, and at minimum, please come to the next board meeting and come to the coffee chats in town hall, but if you want to do exactly this again, let us know, and we'll facilitate that some way, but thank you for all your input and everything you do for the community.
Yeah, we're gonna have public comment here in a second. Yeah, there's gonna be public
Yeah,
comment.
we'll get the public
Before
comment.
this group breaks up, I'd like to have a little historical perspective.
Do you mind saving it for public comment? Is that
All
okay?
right.
It's gonna be like 5
It's
seconds.
very real, okay. I just want these people to get away.
I promise you.
I
We'll stay. We'll stay.
I
So
do
we'll stay
want
for
to
comment.
offer though to Bellbrook Bible Church, public comment is limited by time, and usually it's a one-way communication kind of thing, versus this is an opportunity to take as much time as you want and kind of have a dialogue. So if you prefer to have unlimited time and have a dialogue, we invite you to kind of say your piece.
I have unlimited time.
Okay.
No,
Don't tell her.
I would like to go home
Limited by
sometime.
practical, you know,
Thanks, Audrey.
world,
Yeah,
but,
so I think we'll have a public comment as well, but my name's Joe Miller, I'm one of the leaders as well at Public Bible Church, and we've really appreciated it. Just thanking the board. We've had 3 years now on a lease there, and I know Sovereign Grace Dayton Church was there for, I think, like 10 years before that. For churches of our size, which are about 60 to 100 people, it's very challenging to find space that will accommodate that, especially in Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Township and the Centerville area and those areas where the vast majority of our congregation lives. And so we'd have loved being down in downtown Bellbrook and getting to meet the people there, getting to meet some of the other churches, getting to meet some of you. I may not have met all of you personally, but it's been just wonderful. So thank you for that opportunity. And we do understand. I live in Bellbrook, I have kids who go to the school district, so I'm glad you're being good stewards of our public money. And think that we're confident that wherever God leads, that we're going to continue to serve the people of Bellbrook. Alongside the physical needs that are being met and educational and social needs, we're also looking at meeting the spiritual needs of the people of Bellbrook and Sugarcreek Township. And so we appreciate those partnerships and we appreciate being able to work alongside you all. I hope to do that more. We will do that more. The question might be where, but we're still going to do that more. So again, we'll have some other public comments, but I wanted to thank you for that and for the opportunity to be here tonight. Don't have any presupposed solutions. I mean, we just did a quick look around Bellbrook-Sugarcreek. If you're looking at something that holds 60 to 100 people where you can have a get-together like that, there's not much available outside of the schools, frankly, outside of the schools. And so, schools have always been a communal meeting place. Libraries as well, although we love Winter's Library, but it's quite small. And so we appreciate that you allow us to meet there publicly on Sunday mornings. This is our Christmas party with our congregation tonight that's going on there right now. We love running into the BART guys every Thursday night as we all commingle. So it's been a wonderful opportunity. Certainly having a place that we can come 24/7 is incredibly helpful. I know you've been very gracious to other churches to meet on Sunday mornings in your buildings. That is also challenging, right? Putting everything together on Sunday mornings, tearing down Sunday afternoons. So if there's an opportunity to stay in a facility where we can be 24/7, we can partner with others, that would be a community space we would love that.
Thank you. Well, thank you all. Really appreciate it. Feel free to stay here if you want or take your seats. Or if anybody needs to take off.
Did you want to say something?
We're going to do a public comment time in just a second. And if anybody needs to take off, we totally get it. Public comment time is next, right?
Yep.
All right. So that will conclude our report to the board here. And we'll move into public comment time just as soon as we settle down for a second. Let everybody take the chair. All right, so your thoughts and comments are very welcome during this time. When given the floor, please share your name, address.
we're starting that. We're starting that.
All right, everybody, we'll bring it back to order. Appreciate you. So we'll conclude that report to the board, move into our regular public comment time that we hold at every one of our meetings. So I got my little spiel here. Your thoughts and comments are very welcome during this time. When given the floor, please share your name, address, and any group affiliation you hold if it's relevant. You'll then have 5 minutes for your comments, which should be directed toward the presiding officer, who tonight happens to be me. This time is for the board to listen and absorb, and as such, traditionally, a dialogue is not created in this moment. In case you're wondering the reason for these policies, which can be read in their entirety on the district's website, policy 169.91, to ensure that as many people as possible have the opportunity to speak and that everyone is treated equally and fairly. Sir, what's your name, sir?
Mike Froning.
Oh, very good. Mike Froning, thank you so much for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Yes.
I lived in this community for 40 years, moved to Beaver Creek Township about 5 years ago. Spent 12 years on the school board. I got off the board 20 years ago. But I have some historical perspective that I would have liked to have shared that I think could have helped. But anyway, I was one of the group of 5 that hired Kevin. I have to remind him tonight what I told him when we hired him away from 20 years at his previous board, that if he could find a better job, I'd help him get it, and he didn't. So on the time I was on the board, I've seen some things in the 40 years in the community. One is I've seen a couple of instances where something like this created a whole lot of churn in the community and negative press and everything else. One was when they put in the area up along Wilmington Pike. A guy by the name of Jock Spears came into town, was going to develop that whole area. And you may say, well, he did. We didn't develop the whole area because there's now a buffer behind it of some housing and residences. And that's how they kept it from becoming a ballot issue, to try to keep that from being rezoned. I was on the school board when we had to expand the bus area, and we wanted to move it up by the high school. We ended up putting it behind the high school, but I also ended up one evening in a basement in Cable's Mill on a Sunday night with a group of residents. We thought we had told the township and the city elected officials what we were doing and how we were going to buffer it, and it was going to be a very attractive facility, but it really became a really point of contention. We were able to solve that by putting it back behind the athletic fields, and that worked out. But I'm going to warn you that it's one thing to go in and put in a facility with the idea that at the time you've already announced what's going to be in there, you put a few houses around it. People buying those houses know exactly what you're putting in. If you don't do that, and you don't have some kind of a buffer of an attractive building, maybe some houses along the front section, I think you're going to find out it's going to be really a tough road. The other thing I can tell you, when I was on the board, I still remember when we pulled up part of the basketball floor and found out we had a bunch of termites under there, and we were struggling. So your one major catastrophe, whether it could be fire prevention, plumbing that could break, it could be a major storm that hits the roof you've suddenly got to replace. Back then, there was the windows. We couldn't even change the windows because in those days, now that's 30 years ago, the older people in the community didn't even want to change the windows. Now, since then, some funerals have taken care of some of that resistance. And I don't mean to joke about it, but it's true. But if you don't go at this the right way, and I think this was a good start, but I think there are ways to do exactly what the people are asking for here if you do it properly. And it could be a good community facility. The thing that I really liked tonight was hearing all the ways that you've managed to use the facility for the community. So I think something along that line, with a few houses or something around the outside. Again, if people know what you're going to put in, and then you put houses in there, whoever buys it will understand. So that's the thing you got to worry about when you do that. Now that place is a money pit. We couldn't afford it back then. You can't afford it now. So I mean, it's really nice. I know a lot of people would like to find ways to keep it going, but like I say, you're one major catastrophe away from not being able to even fix it. So with that, I hope that I've seen a little bit of the plans the Lions Club has proposed, and I think they've got the potential to have a plan that would work, that would help the community, would help some of these people that are using facilities now, and become something that we could all be proud of. So with that, I'll end.
Thank you very much for your comments. Really appreciate that. Up next, Roy Sherwood.
Yep.
All right, very good. Thanks for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Again, good evening. Roy Sherwood, 4236 Bellmead Drive in Bellbrook. I'm the lead pastor of Bellbrook Bible Church, and one of the tenants in Sugar Creek Elementary. Again, I wanted to begin by expressing my appreciation to the school board for having a conversation like this. It's a really meaningful thing in the community. I'm personally here because of the place that this community has in my heart. My wife and I moved in just about 10 years ago into Mill Pond Apartments. At the time I was serving as an associate pastor at a church in Washington Township, way down on the south side, but we had grown to love Bellbrook in particular, this community. And so in 2018, with our first child on the way, we bought a home in the neighborhood behind Mill Pond. We set out to know our neighbors, hosting cookouts, campfires, and we saw new neighbors and old neighbors really for the first time get to know each other and have the joy of having meaningful relationships within our own neighborhood. We started Bellbrook Bible Church in August of 2020. In the middle of the pandemic, we spent the first few months in our own backyard. There were about 15 of us. And when winter came, we were grateful for the Bell House, if any of you have any experiences there, to at least just a few hours on Sundays during that time. But then again, we connected with Sovereign Grace Church of Dayton. They were meeting at Sugarcreek Elementary for quite some time, but were planning to move north, as most of their people lived north of this area. They'd been praying that they'd be able to leave that space to another church committed to preaching the good news of Jesus Christ and to serving Bellbrook in particular. And so at the same time, we were praying for a spot specifically in Bellbrook that would accommodate our growing church. And so we had a partnership that began with them. We met there in the evenings until they moved, and then we got to come back to Sunday mornings, which was helpful for us. But again, all told, our congregation has been in Sugarcreek Elementary, calling that home for 3.5 years. It's been a great place for us, a great space in the heart of our community, for us to grow spiritually, for us to grow numerically. It's hosted our worship gatherings on Sunday mornings. It's hosted small group ministry on Thursdays, monthly men's and women's events, holiday gatherings, summer kids programs, food and gift distribution, among other events. It provides storage, provides office space, in a community where space, frankly, is limited. But it also provides a place where community is built in Bellbrook. Bellbrook Bible Church loves this community. We really do. We're committed to this place. We care for its spiritual, its physical, and its relational needs. We help people to know God and love like Christ by teaching God's word in this neighborhood. We have a place for significant spiritual friendships to develop among diverse backgrounds in this neighborhood. We share a free meal with everyone every week. We spend our gifts, we spend our lives here in Bellbrook, and we see God transforming people's lives in our midst. And so as it is, Bellbrook needs more churches to do this kind of work. We're a city of about 7,400 people, but there are only about half a dozen small to mid-sized churches in our community. And so as a reality, people scatter from Bellbrook on Sundays and really throughout the week to seek spiritual community, to build social capital, and to serve in other communities rather than in this one. And so the kind of work done by us and by the other tenants in Sugarcreek Elementary should be highly valued by the school board, and I believe that it is, because the well-being of our schools is directly connected to the well-being of our community. And so if it was up to us, we would be happy to sign a long-term lease on the building. Certainly we cannot make up the full net loss that the district has on the 5-building campus. I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $43,000 in the presentation. But we'd certainly be interested to discuss how we could meaningfully reduce that number. We may be able to bring a little more to the table perhaps than some of the other groups just by the nature of what we are. We'd also be interested in seeing other solutions explored. Is it possible to achieve cost savings by reducing staff hours? Are there operational costs that could be reduced? In terms of revenue, what else might the Greene County ESC be able to bring to the table, whether that's in purchasing or leasing? Might the support center, the radio club, the historical society, the soccer association be willing to minimally increase registration costs or membership dues? Because really a few extra dollars a month could raise thousands of dollars of revenue for the sake of the building, at least in the short term, if the choice is between meeting in that place or not having a place to meet. For the Lions Club, who uses the property for Summerfest, might they be able to charge perhaps a small nominal increase on rides or vendor costs to continue using the property? There are some unused spaces within the building. Might they be leased? If rent went up, at least short term, are there other possible interested tenants within the building? Now, if the reality is there are truly no other options to save that important community space as it currently is, then we would be content to say, God is good, God is faithful, we confidently trust that He will provide more space for us. If it's time for us to find a new location, we would love to hear from the schools or the community what those places might be that we could borrow, rent, lease, purchase, whatever the case is. But again, I wanted to thank you guys for this opportunity. I very much appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
you.
It's great to meet you. Thank you. All right, that brings me to the end of our list, so we will close.
Wait,
Please, go ahead.
uh-oh.
Your name and address for the record, sir.
For the record, it's so nice to be actually able to stand up here today. So Logan Ashley, City of Bellbrook, 4129 West Franklin. I had a resident ask me to bring this up, so I'd be bad if I didn't, because that's my job. She had a concern about lighting at the middle school and students. She said she's seen 2 students possibly get almost hit coming up in the mornings because it's dark, going up by this parking lot from cars pulling out too fast. She was wondering
At the parking lot? Okay.
Yeah, coming, like going up the sidewalk and then people pulling out, and she's afraid the lighting's not adequate.
You mean here, like, right here in this parking lot or out by the feed wire?
No, our parking lot over here. So if they're coming
Okay.
up, say the drive or the sidewalk right there and their bicycles, and trying to come back where they're supposed to be, cars pulling out and almost hitting them.
Okay.
She was concerned about lighting not being adequate.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I'll check into that.
Take a look at that.
that's all.
All right, thank you.
Good seeing everybody.
Thanks, Logan. All right, we are done with open communication period, and whenever you're ready, sir, I believe that takes us to the superintendent's report.
Okay. So this is a consent agenda A through D, 7A through D. Certificated license, employment, resignation, leave of absence, supplemental duty, and then so that's for certified, and then central office employment, resignation, leave of absence, and then support staff employment, resignation, leave of absence, and then D, support employment, substitute employment, sorry. So consent A through D.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dorn and then Dr. Pryor. Comments?
Yeah, again, so just rounding out some winter sports, basketball, all those folks were already volunteers, but just rounding out what their percents actually are. And then just reemployment of Tom Fryman in the maintenance department, supervisor, and then, again, a few other support staff resignations, and then, again, always looking for some substitutes. So, that's it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Price? Yes. Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes. Motion passes.
Okay, and then 7E, substitute employment. So this is recommended for the second semester of this school year. So a list for all of second semester. We have to do this by semester. We have to, board has to vote on approving those substitutes by semester. So this is for second semester only this year.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dorn and then Mrs. Anderson. And in case anybody's wondering, we pulled this one separately out from the consent agenda because Mr. Price's wife is on the list. So, questions about the substitute list? Okay, please call the roll.
Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price? Abstain.
All right, moving on to 8A, District Legal Counsel. Recommend approval of the firm Bricker Graydon LLP as Board School District Legal Counsel for Special Education.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Pryor and then Mrs. Anderson.
Again, so this is contracting with that firm for some additional services that specialize in special education. So, again, we have our regular school attorney, but this is just for special education.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price? Yes. Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
All right, and then meeting calendar. This was on a previous last month's board meeting for meeting calendar for 2025. For recommend approval of the 2025 meeting calendar for the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Local Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dorn, Mrs. Anderson.
Again, as I mentioned, this is a second read.
Anybody have any thoughts on the calendar? Good to go. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price? Yes. Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
All right, back to me. So I will entertain a motion from somebody to recommend affirmation of motion number 24-5, naming incumbent board president as president pro tem at the annual organizational meeting, which will be January 9th, 2025, until duly reappointed by associate board members or replaced by a duly elected successor.
Moved.
Mrs. Dorn and then Mrs. Anderson. Same thing every single year, we always do it, is that somebody has to like open the meeting in January before a new president can be elected. So same thing we've always done.
We'll let you do that. Good.
Give 5 minutes at the beginning. All right. Call the roll.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price? Yes. Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Motion passes. I will also take a motion to recommend approval of memorandum of understanding with the Sugar Creek Local Association of Support Personnel regarding merit pay for the 2024-2025 school year.
So moved.
Dr. Pryor and then Mrs. Anderson. Okay. Comments? We can call the roll.
Mr. Price? Yes. Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes. And as a follow-on, I will take a motion, recommended action for merit pay purposes. Employees that are placed on the administrative salary schedule shall be given the same merit pay as certified staff, and employees that are placed on the central office salary schedule shall be given the same merit pay as the classified staff per each negotiated agreement from 2024 to 2027.
Second.
Mrs. Anderson and then Dr. Pryor. Call the roll, please.
Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Motion passes.
All right, out-of-state travel. Recommend approve out-of-state travel for music teacher Barbara Seiler to the Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic in Chicago, Illinois, December 17th to the 21st. 2024, cost of the district includes substitute teacher for 4 days.
Second.
Mrs. Anderson and then Dr. Pryor. Any other comments about that one?
It's just a typical trip.
Pretty
Yep.
descriptive.
Yep.
There. Questions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price? Yes. Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, is that it for superintendent's report?
Yep.
All right, thank you, sir. Next, just some board reflections, anything you want to share. All of us had the opportunity to attend the OSBA, the Ohio School Boards Association Capital Conference recently in Columbus a few weeks ago. I don't know if you just want to go around the horn. Maybe I'll just go first, which it's been a really good meeting. I know it's getting late. I didn't have a whole lot to share. Just I spent my time seeking out some more of the boring stuff, but the really important stuff. So I went to some talks about policies, governance. It was really interesting about public comment time because we want to engage the community, we want to seek out input, yet at the same time there's a legal way to do that and a right way to do that and a wrong way to do that. So a lot of really good information on making sure that we can hear from everybody at the appropriate time. That was one of the biggest things I took away. But all good stuff.
I think one of the ones that I went to, it was transparency in curriculum and things like that. I think our district is actually ahead in that area where we have the curriculum nights. They were suggesting that boards move in that direction, just based on some legislation that's going through. But I think we've already surpassed that, so I was pleased to see that we're kind of right in there. So, and then nothing to report from the delegate. I served as the delegate for Bellbrook for the business meeting. Some things that were kind of over my head that were discussed as far as tips and things like that. I ran it by Mr. Liming and did vote the correct way for our district. So I was happy that I understood enough. Thank you to your education on that. But nothing else to report. Our drone team was a huge asset to the student achievement fair. They were virtually flying through their courses and people were just staring like, how are you doing this? So like, they really represented Bellbrook very well.
Good.
So I was very pleased that they could go.
Well, I attended 6 different classes. They were very useful. Loved seeing the drone team. Listening to a lot of them, like top 10 legal mistakes at board meetings, like, we're doing really well. Some of the questions some other board members asked, you know, made you real nervous, but I'm very glad that we're very up on things, so, anyway, it was useful.
Like most of you, I went to a number of different sessions on crisis response and special ed behavior issues and navigating crises. I went to one that was specifically called, it was titled Community First Approach to Facilities, and I thought it might give some tips for what we were doing here tonight. In reality, it was a district that needed to build all new facilities, and they were trying to get levies passed. So it wasn't entirely applicable to what we were doing. But I did get a little nugget that I thought maybe we might want to implement. And Henry, I've been meaning to talk to you about this. This community was struggling to pass levies to build new facilities. And they kept having these big town hall meetings where everybody would come, and some people would be angry, but there would be tons of people there, and you know, maybe 10% of the people would step up to talk. But they started doing this approach where they called them exit tickets, and everybody got handed an exit ticket when they walked in. And on their way out the door, they were forced to, whatever, write down, is there anything, a question you didn't get answered, a comment that you didn't want to share out loud. So it was another way for all of those people to be heard that maybe didn't get selected to speak or didn't want to voice their opinion out loud because of the angry sentiment in the room. Maybe they had a different opinion, but it was scary to voice that different opinion. And then invited them to put their name and email address or phone number so that someone from the district, either a board member or an administrator, could follow up with them and answer their question or, you know, at least respond. And they said they started getting a lot more opinions because they kept just getting the same few loud, angry people, and it was a good way for them to get more of a community consensus because, and I think we've all experienced this, that there is kind of a silent majority, especially even at a meeting where there's a lot of interest and controversy. There's a lot of people who sit there quietly. So they use that as a way to kind of gauge the crowd and just get their thoughts on the way out the door, but then also followed up with them afterwards. And I thought that was kind of cool. Cool way to do that. So that was a little nugget that they said was really helpful for them. So an idea, I think especially for things like what we're dealing with Sugar Creek Elementary. I mean, it could be something we did at every meeting, but particularly ones that are highly attended and maybe a little more boisterous.
I love that idea. I mean,
well,
it's not your idea.
It wasn't my idea at all.
I love the idea that you didn't think of. Could we maybe ask Mr. Conti and Dr. Kozad to think whether, you know, something like that, maybe something else, but just maybe we won't do anything but something like that? Because the first thing that comes to my mind is like, well, what if somebody brings extra tickets and stuffs the ballot box or something? So
they said they handed everybody one on their way in.
Yeah.
So like you got a ticket.
Different color
like,
or
so it
something,
wasn't
maybe,
like, and you could put your name on it and your contact information on the way out the door. And everybody dropped one on their way out the door. So it wasn't like somebody was going to drop 10, you know. So you didn't have to do it, but they said even if it was just thanks for having this meeting, and sometimes that would be the comment that they got.
I love that because, I mean, we can all know that it might take a special type of personality or a special level of anger to have the guts to step up in front of a microphone that's going to be live, YouTubed, and archived forever and ever. So I think something like that is a great idea. Do you mind maybe brainstorming a few ideas?
Look into that, yep.
Cool. Anybody else?
One of the things I appreciated at the OSBA was being able to go around and talk to various vendors, providers of services, and whatnot. And I always have a focus on safety-related technology. And there were several vendors there, and so we've had discussions since then with safety committee and such. And we're having people come out and help us continue to scrutinize how we can improve the safety of our facilities for our children and for our staff and faculty. So. Always appreciate that, and there's quite an opportunity there to speak to people that's their whole job, you know, is not just security, but a variety of things, you know, curriculum or whatnot, but I just tend to have a keen eye for and tend to gravitate toward the folks that are talking about the safety and security stuff. So, anyhow, it was, I thought, very worthwhile to have that opportunity.
Anyone else? All right, so we will now move into letter B of whatever number this is.
Yep.
9B?
9, yes. So this is first read, so policy draft revisions, technical changes. I know there looks like a lot, and there are quite a few there, but some of them are a couple rescind, and then there's some small changes in some of them, so there are quite a few there, but if you have any feedback or anything else, please let me know. Ms. Dorr and I met with our Neola rep right before Thanksgiving break, and so went through these. So,
There were quite a
and Mr.
few
Liming
recommended
also.
that we decided to table. There were more than
Yes,
this, but
there were more than
it's
that.
really just because the legislature has been very active lately. So a lot of this
Right.
is just putting stuff that's now law into policy.
And also, I know Mrs. DeStefani mentioned it, so there's that joint meeting Mr. Tiffany had emailed today of February 3rd at 5 o'clock. Again, if we all go, then again, it's got to be a board meeting. If it's just 2 people, then it doesn't have to be a board meeting. So that's something maybe we want to think about. I don't know what everybody's thoughts are with that.
If they really want to talk about this, I think we all need to go.
We've been trying for a long time to get something on the books, and I think I would like everybody to be there if we can.
Okay, then we just need to put out a special meeting notice, and that, okay. I just need to know what direction, yep.
That's just me though.
So that's at the township building. I will confirm that that's a 100% go, but if it is, then we'll have a special meeting that day.
If we're talking about this topic,
Right.
what is the chance that the township facility is not going to be large enough to hold the people who would be interested? Even once we just fill it with, what is it, 7 + 7 + 5?
Is it big enough for everybody? We're bigger than, we're probably similar to this room here.
And this room's a little bit bigger, I think.
If we had 2 other 7-person entities in here, and then we have the opportunity to move, when we have big meetings, we move out there. That's my only, may want to throw out, taking a look at, I don't know if that's a thing, but when we have
I can talk to
that
Mr.
many
Tiffany.
public officials, just ourselves, plus whoever would be interested to come.
I'd say Rob, Barry, and Doug, just tell us where to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where it ends up.
okay.
And I will, am I not?
Sure.
Okay, I will say one other thing we might want to have on that agenda would be to talk about ball fields in the community. At a recent park board meeting, their new commissioner and one of the other commissioners that has been on the board for a while was saying that he's not hearing anything from the community about wishing that our Parks District would have more recreation as far as part of what they are developing and building in the community. And I know a lot of you probably have children or know families that would like to see an increase of ballparks in our community. So that would be something else we'd like to have on the agenda to talk about as far as setting up a follow-on meeting to potentially bring families in to talk to the park board and all of the community as a whole, as far as another thing to brainstorm and see what we can do as a collaborative community partnership and how we can make this better for our community.
All right. Anything else, sir, before we move to time? All right, I will take a motion from somebody to move to executive session for the purpose of considering the employment and compensation of a public employee per RC 121.22G1, and for the purpose of reviewing details relative to the security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body per RC 121.22G6.
So moved.
Mrs. Dorn and then Mrs. Anderson. And before we vote, I'll just say here during discussion that this is one of those very, very rare times that we actually do intend to consider decisions after this. So we'll try to be as brief as possible. Please feel free to hang out because we do anticipate deliberating things and possibly making a decision once we're back out of executive session. Okay?
You can eat cake while we're all
Yeah, nobody's eating cake.
Please
you
eat
go.
cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody needs to start.
All right, so it has been moved by Mrs. Dorn, seconded by Mrs. Anderson to move into executive session for 2 reasons. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price? Yes. Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
All right, we are in executive session at 9:04.
Got it.
All right, we are out of executive session at 9:49 PM. Let me just make sure I'm in the right spot in my paper here. Give me a second. There's
10B,
10B. right?
resolution active shooter response.
Do it. I don't have my laptop. What? Okay, yeah, there we go. Can I borrow this?
Yeah.
Thank you. I've got the wrong paper. All right. Give me a second.
That's 10B.
Yeah, right there.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so I will take a motion from somebody, please, to recommend approval to modify motion number 23-126 to add or otherwise be authorized to carry a concealed firearm pursuant to federal law to the phrase to possess a valid Ohio concealed handgun license, and to add or through requalification training that meets the requirements of the state of Ohio pursuant to ORC 5502.703 as an additional method for ASRT members to requalify their weapon.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so moved by Mr. Price. I think I heard Mrs. Anderson first. So just real quick, kind of what this is that as things evolve, and we've now been through several trainings, been to multiple active shooter conferences and whatnot, and also in consultation with our lawyer, two things that they're just recommending that we do. One is to add another way to carry pursuant to federal law, and then the other one, I do have some specifics. I gave you some handouts, is that to add in addition to, not taking anything away, we're adding in addition to what it's always been one of the many, many hoops that our fine folks have to jump through, passing the OPATA live fire qualification, also adding in the
OPATA means?
Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy. That's the qualification that law enforcement officers pass. In addition, adding it as an option to do the Ohio School Safety Center asset qualification. And I'm happy to go through this if you want, but you have a copy here of the fire, and you can find all of this online. It's publicly accessible. But the one thing that I will mention is that the asset qualification that we're considering adding is by some respects probably more challenging or more difficult than the OPATA qualification that we already require, and that's mainly due to the target shape, target size requires a higher demand of accuracy. So I can get down in the weeds if you want, but it is a more challenging course of fire and target, and because it was specifically tailored for the school personnel program, you know, we did this while they were still figuring out all of their training and requirements. So now that we see what that is, we've been through it, the recommendation is to add that as a qualification option. Questions? All right, so that has been moved and seconded. I always forget, you're not allowed to call the roll, right?
Correct.
So I will call the roll. Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey is a yes. Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
And Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. All right, so we now move down to C. I will take a motion to recommend approval of resolution to appoint certain individuals as members of the district's active shooter response team and authorizing those individuals to have access to and possess a deadly weapon or ordinance in a school safety zone.
Moved.
Second?
Moved by Mrs. Dorn, seconded by Mrs. Anderson. Very good news. Very grateful that we have an additional list that we can consider approving tonight. This is the third or fourth list of names of folks who've thought about it and decided to join our volunteer, highly vetted, highly trained active shooter response team. So before we vote, I say thank you once again to everybody who serves on that team, not just as a school board member, but as a dad, and it's fantastic to potentially add some names here. Questions or comments? Okay, Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey is a yes. Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
And Mr. Price?
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes. All right, anything else? I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Pryor. Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey's a yes. Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
And Mrs. Dorr?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned at 9:50.